Okay guys, so today what we're talking about, well you don't know, I know, we're talking about interviews. So far everything you've learned is basically to get to this stage, isn't it really? I suppose the next stage after this is who you're offering, how to do it, and get them onboarded into your company. So it's video 10, wow, you must have learned so many amazing things so far in the academy. But yeah, today is all about interviews, which are all about impressing candidates. So I've touched on it a few times in this series so far, that the whole process of recruitment really has nothing to do with you as an employer of people. It is everything to do about the candidates. It's about finding them, attracting them, appealing to them, making them want you. It's all about the candidates and what you can do for them, what's in it for them, why should they want to come and work for you. And the interview is no different. It's not just about them. Luckily for you, the interview is a two-way process. But unfortunately, a lot of people that carry out interviews as the interviewer don't seem to think that. They seem to think that the candidates are there to be questioned, have questions fired at them. It's all about them impressing you and you deciding whether you want them, which is part of it, but it's also the other way as well. So I think interviews are a bit like a first date. So we liken recruitment to dating a lot really, although I've not really mentioned it much in the academy so far. I think I touched on it at the beginning. But so maybe everyone seems to find each other online these days. So you would be engaged with someone's profile, you like the pictures, they look active, they might do the same things that you do, have similar hobbies and interests, and so you might match with them or contact them depending on what platform you're using. Oh sorry, I didn't introduce Lewis. Lewis is here as well, sitting here very quietly, ready to give his tips about the interview process. So we'll go to Lewis in a sec. But you match with people, you chat on the dating app, the platform, you might move it to WhatsApp if things are getting serious. Maybe you'll have a phone call and then you'll meet up. And when you meet up, so that basically explains your entire recruitment process up to this video. And then you meet up, and I mean, we've probably all been on bad dates, or when you've been to networking and get stuck in a corner with someone just talking at you for ages. They don't ask you a single question. They just tell you about their business, what they do, why you would benefit from being a client of theirs, and they drone on, and you're like trying to find your escape route and catch someone else's eye so you can go and talk to somebody else. And I think we've probably all been on a bad date where you sat across from someone and again they're just droning on and on about themselves, their job, their promotion, what they do at the weekend, and you're like, are you going to ask me a single question? Are you gonna, and you just get a bad impression. It isn't one-sided. It shouldn't be one-sided. And I suppose the point I'm trying to make is that your interviews shouldn't be one-sided. It shouldn't all be about you and your business and how amazing it is and the opportunity. You've got to, but then equally, it shouldn't only be finding out about the candidate. There's got to be some middle ground. So I suppose the reason why I likened it to dating, for the purpose of this example, is that you're on your best behaviour. The candidates are on the best behaviour. No one's being the true self at this point. You're in the honeymoon period. Everyone's being nice and lovely. No one's forgetting to take out the bins or leaving the loo seat up. You're in that honeymoon period where everyone's on the best behaviour, and that means both sides. Remember, it is a two-way street. They are there to make you want them, and you are there to make them want you, with some questions thrown into the mix just to find out a little bit about each other. So, first things first, always invite someone to an interview verbally. Don't just send them an email. I think I explained this in my story on, I think the very first video of the Recruitment Academy, where the customer had just emailed candidates after they've applied to a job. He emailed them, inviting them to an interview, and then wondered why they didn't show up. So there was no conversation. If you're following this process, you will have had a candidate screening call, but I still think it's the right thing to do to invite someone to an interview verbally, because it's exciting. It's the whole point as to why both parties are there. Candidates are excited that they've got an interview, and you're excited that you want to interview them because they could be that potential new hire for your business. You cannot convey excitement, enthusiasm, and energy as well in an email as you can in just a quick 2-3 minute phone call. You might ring them up to tell them the good news, and then you might follow up with an email to share availability if they need to check the calendar, or they may know then and there on the phone call whether they can come on Tuesday at 3. They might just know that, but if they don't, follow up on an email with the details so they've got it all there, so that when they need to check their availability, they remember what time, because you might have caught them in the middle of Tesco doing the big shop and they might not remember what the time and date was. So always follow up in writing. I don't think it's a negative if you didn't follow up in an email but you followed up in a text message or a WhatsApp message, but always follow up with the information. And then once you've got confirmation that they can make that time and date, then send them the interview confirmation details via email. That has to be done via email. So, and use your personality. So like, hey Sarah, we're absolutely delighted to confirm your interview details for the position of talent seeker at Fresh Perspective. Here are the details. So location, time, date, who they're going to be interviewing with, ideally a link to your LinkedIn profile so they can easily find you on LinkedIn, because you know there might be other people called your name and they're like, is it them, is it them? They've never met you, remember, so they don't know what you look like. So make it easy for them to connect with you and for them to check you out, because they're going to want to do the research. So give them a helping hand and give them the LinkedIn profiles of the people in the interview. I would advise no more than 2 or 3 people. And when you are sending your interview confirmation with the names of the people in, give their job titles as well as the links to their LinkedIn profiles. But remember, excitement, enthusiasm, personality, communication, passion, those are the 5 key things at any point of the process, definitely in your interviews. Remember what we talked about on the candidate experience video, that it's all about their experience, their journey with you as an organisation. So don't, I suppose, make yourself fall down at any one of the hurdles that are potentially presented in front of you. Always put your best foot forward and delight them with your positive personality and engaging experience. I've got a hair in my mouth, there we go, I've got it. So it's a really good idea to let everybody in the organisation know that you have interviews that day. I would even go so far as to give them the names and the times. And the reason for that, I hope you can guess, is that when the candidate comes in through the front doors and they go to reception, like I've come for an interview, and they give you a name, people are expecting them. They know who they're meeting, they're expecting them at the time, and they can really, I mean, even if they weren't expecting them, good receptionists, the people that kind of front of house of your business, they will always welcome everybody warmly with enthusiasm and friendliness anyway. But if they're expecting them, it just gives that bit of personal, just a bit more of a personal touch, I suppose. I know this has nothing to do with recruitment, but when I went to the very first appointment with my chiropractor, on the whiteboard as I walked in, it said, welcome, new patient today, Laura Leyland. And I'm like, oh, I really like that. And it was just a nice personal touch that just went a little bit further than a generic introduction. So let everybody know, because if people know there's going to be strangers in the building, they'll remember to smile at them, and everyone, when they come to an interview, will feel warm, welcomed, and expected, because everybody, they should feel expected. They should feel as though you are ready for them to come to an interview, that they should feel like you're excited to meet them, that you can't wait to find out about them, and that you're expecting them. They don't want to feel like an afterthought, that nobody knows, no one's really that bothered. Remember, people will always remember how you make them feel. So from the moment they walk in to the moment they leave, you've just got to woo them and make the whole thing just feel super amazing for them. So now we get on to the actual interview itself. Much like the candidate screening document that you put together, remember that templated document, that very first phone call with the candidates, where you're trying to figure out whether they're a good fit for the job and whether you want to interview them. This is a more in-depth version of that. So you might have a little bit of duplication, and the reason for the duplication is because you aren't going to do the interview on your own. You are not going to be the person that does the whole recruitment process, does the candidate screening call, and then does the interview on their own and makes a decision, unless you're the only person in the business and you can't get away from that. But I would always advise in this situation, if you've got HR support or you know you're going to be using a certain company for HR support when you actually have a team. If this is the first person that you're hiring for your business, just try to find somebody else to be in the interview with you. And the reason for that is nothing like scary that you cannot be trusted to interview by yourself, but sometimes it's just really helpful to have another person there. If you're taking notes, they can be asking questions and vice versa. And then afterwards, if you're not sure what to do, which candidate is the best and you can't decide between 2 or 3, if you have somebody else there coming at it from a totally different perspective or a fresh perspective, you can have that conversation and you can really hash out the pros and cons of each individual candidate, and it really helps to make a decision. I wouldn't get away with making the decision by myself, because there's too many people here that want to be involved, which is amazing. But I wouldn't want to be the only person that makes that decision, because I think if I got it wrong, then it's only my fault. And who wants that? So you would definitely recap. So I always say, for the benefit of Vicky or Emily who are interviewing with me, say, can you just explain your current situation? Can you tell us a bit about yourself? So I'd always do that. And then they get to kind of recap for everybody, so we're all on the same page and we're off to a great start. So make sure you have that templated interview document and really think about, so you might have some questions that you had on the candidate screening document. They may still make an appearance because they might give you not a different answer, but they might expand or elaborate. Or you could say, we asked you this on the screening call. Can you go into a bit more detail? Can you give me a different example? Especially if it's something that's really, really important to you, the business, or it's really relevant for the job at hand and it's a super important question. Just because you've asked it once doesn't mean you can't ask it again. So make sure you prepare questions. Really think about what it is you're trying to get out of each interview. Who are you trying to find? What information are you trying to draw out of them? So for us, we don't hire people necessarily that have recruitment experience, but I want to know that people are resilient and tenacious and they've got a strong work ethic. I want to know that they can deal with difficult situations, that they're happy communicating on the phone, that they're really personable, they've got good organisational and administrative skills, as well as speaking on the phone and having a sparkling personality. There's lots of different things that I want to pull out, and so I'll ask questions about their home life. I might ask questions about, what's the most difficult situation that you've been through, sorry, an itchy eye, that you've been through in your life, because you wanted to know what people have dealt with, how have they overcome things. I'm not necessarily bothered about, well, I am bothered about what they've been through, because I really care about the people that I hire into my business, but I want to know what have they dealt with, how did they deal with it, and what have they learned from that? Have they gained confidence? Have they gained resilience? So asking people about their personal lives and what they like to get up to outside of work is really important. We had a customer that was a customer for a very short space of time, and then we parted ways because we just didn't fit each other at all. When we were sending candidates through, we would explain why we think they'd be a good fit, and we always explain who they are as people. What do they care about? What are they driven by? What are they passionate about? What do they do outside of work? And they said, why are you sending us this information? I don't care what they get up to outside of work. I just care if they can come in and do a good job. And I was like, wow. Okay, we are poles apart in how we view recruitment. And I'm not saying they're wrong, that's just who they are, and it's how they do recruitment for their business. But it's just two very different processes. But by talking to someone about who they are, you put them at ease, and they're relaxed, they're a lot more calm in the interview, and you get a truer reflection of who they are as people. When people are relaxed, they are themselves. When people are nervous, people respond in very different ways. Some people can come across as standoffish when they're nervous, and when you see them again afterwards, they're totally different because they're relaxed, they've already met you once. So just remember these things, prepare questions about the technical specificity of the job at hand, their skills, their experience that would lend themselves well, but also ask them lots of different types of questions about who they are as people. And things like, how do they learn? How do they like to be trained? How do they like to be managed? What management style they don't really respond to, and why? There's so many different questions. So really spend some time preparing your interview document. You might tweak it for different types of positions that you're interviewing for in the future, but always have a good standard template. And remember, like I mentioned on the candidate screening video, questions send messages to candidates about who you are as an employer, a business, a person, and vice versa. The questions candidates ask to you also send you messages about them, whether that be positive or negative. I would try to stay away from competency-based questions. If you watch the previous videos, you will know why. I don't think they represent personality, company culture, as well as other questions. I think if you're only asking competency-based questions, I don't think that's a good idea. If you're really wedded to them, you can ask a few, but just intersperse them with lots of other types of questions, using open and closed questions as well. But remember, throughout all of this, bring the culture, bring the fun, bring the energy, and make them want you. You'll get a much better response from the candidate in their answers as well. What else do I need to let you know? Oh yes, what not to talk about. Stay away from things like politics, religion, age, race, gender. Don't get involved in any of these things. I mean, and I know you're probably thinking, why would I talk about any of that in an interview? And yes, why would anybody? But some people do. So I'm just going to not assume anything. I'm just going to make it known right now. Don't talk about any of that in your interview. Keep it positive, keep it exciting. One thing as well I'd like to say is, and this has been quite prevalent recently, when we are hiring for fresh, I always have an open mind, because I don't hire people with recruitment experience, so I have to have an open mind really. But I suppose it's like the innocent until proven guilty, that saying. When people come to interview with me, I have an open mind, and I suppose the innocent is that they're an amazing candidate until they show me otherwise. So I'm excited, I've got an open mind, I'm well up for this interview. I can't wait to find out about this person. They can be the next freshie, and how exciting is that? But a lot of people, in my past experience, when we're working with different types of businesses and different people, they almost have the opposite. Like, this candidate they pull out all the negatives about the CV and the previous job experience and any gaps and any spelling mistakes, and they find all the negatives, and they're like, and then I honestly don't even know why they're interviewing them if they feel so strongly about them. But they feel negatively, I suppose, the guilty side of things, and then that candidate has got to then change their opinion and prove to them that they're a good candidate and that they are in fact innocent. And I just think that is the wrong attitude to have. Have a positive, open mind and be excited. And if through the course of the interview they prove to you that actually they aren't what you expected and they're totally wrong for your business and for your job, then fine. That's the whole point of an interview. And unfortunately, some people think that then means that the interview was a waste of time. But every no gets you closer to your yes. So it isn't a waste of time. Your interviews are important. You'll learn so much along the way about who you are as an interviewer, an employer, a business, and it will really help you shape what it is you're actually looking for, and it gets you closer to that hire, which is so exciting. Think about as well, ahead of your interviews, when you're prepping the document, think about length of interviews. I think half an hour for a telephone interview, and I think an hour for a face-to-face, and then if you want to get them back, maybe another hour or a little bit longer if they're going to be doing any tasks or tests or presentations, or if they're going to be being shown around the offices, or they're going to meet any of the other teams. We do our half an hour telephone interview. We'll have an hour long face-to-face, and then now we actually get people to come in for about 3 or 4 hours as a paid for trial. So they take the time off work if they're currently employed, and we pay them for their time. They get to come and sit with the team. They get to do bits and pieces of the job, and they get to question the team members and really listen to what we talk about, how we treat each other, and they can start to figure out whether they can see themselves working here based on that kind of like short experience. So I don't know if that's something that you guys could maybe implement into your interview process, but that's working really well for us at the moment. And always give next steps at the end of an interview, explain what's going to happen next, and always ask if they've got questions. If you're anything like me, you will be crushingly disappointed if the answer is no. At the end of an hour-long conversation, if they've got no questions, I'm always very surprised, and I always say, are you sure you've got everything you need to know to make a decision whether you actually want to come and work here long term? And they say yes, but then I'm like, I'm not sure I believe you, but never mind. I'm always disappointed when people don't have questions, but always give them the opportunity, because they might not feel, sorry, put my leg on Louis' head, I forgot he was here. They might not feel like there's an appropriate time throughout the interview, or they might have that outdated viewpoint that they are the second-class citizen in the interview and they don't want to interrupt you by asking a question. So always give the opportunity at the end if they haven't. And then if there are any tests or tasks or presentations to do, always give them notice ahead of time, because that's when you get the best results from someone. You're not going to get the best results from making someone feel pressured, stressed and put on the spot. So always give them the information ahead of time. And I think that is it for me today on interviews. So I'm going to say bye. Lewis has decided he doesn't want to say anything about interviews, has gone to sleep, and I'll see you on the next video.